Hey everyone, Design Gal here with you. Thanks for checking this out. This is another video in the careers series, so welcome. Today I want to talk about a topic that I have wanted to make into a video for a really long time, and that is, should you work in a design agency? I remember when I was in school for design, and it seemed like the goal of everyone was to work for a really awesome design agency. And design agencies are definitely popular, and for very good reasons. So today I want to go through what those reasons are, and also maybe some of the drawbacks that you maybe wouldn't have known unless you worked in them. Just some things to think about and consider if you are thinking about working for an agency. Personally, I've worked in 3 agencies over an 8-year period, and while they were pretty different from each other, there was definitely some similarities across all 3. I've also got a lot of friends who are designers in other agencies, and even at their jobs, there's a lot of similar things I kept hearing. So this video is going to be a nice pros and cons list for you to consider if you're thinking about joining a design agency. Let's go. All right, let's start with the positive things. The first thing I want to talk about is the variety of projects you'll get to work on at an agency. So something that makes an agency is that you are actually working for a company and other businesses come to you for work. You are doing projects on behalf of clients, and these clients could be very different from one another. Unless you're an agency that really specializes in one type of project or one type of industry, you're likely going to get a lot of that variety, which means you could be working on something completely different from one day to the next. I kind of feel like as designers, we're curious people. We like to learn a lot. We like to explore things that we don't know about. And so an agency is a really cool way for you to learn about other things while on the job, because you need to learn about their business so you can deliver the best design to serve them and their business need. And so you end up learning a lot about really random stuff you never would have known. No day looks exactly the same. So if you're somebody that gets bored doing the same thing over and over and you couldn't do it every day, maybe an agency would be good for you. The next pro I want to talk about is that agencies tend to have a really fun company culture. Things are pretty casual. They're typically not very strict about dress code or anything like that. Pretty relaxed. They tend to have a lot of younger folks in them, so a lot of people just coming out of school. 20s and 30s is typically what you'll see in an agency. These people have a lot of energy, a lot of new ideas. They're very fresh and excited. Along with that fun company culture, you typically have some fun events, team bonding, all that kind of stuff. Agencies are really fun places to work, and that's something I really loved about working in agencies. The next pro is that you get to try or learn a lot of different things. So because agencies are typically smaller companies, you kind of have to wear a lot of hats. So even though your title may be graphic designer or user interface designer, you really are probably going to do a lot more than just that. So my first job out of college was at an agency actually, and even though my title was graphic designer, what I ended up working on was designing business cards, designing logos, designing websites, a lot of print material. I also got to art direct photo shoots and video shoots. I got to go on location. I got to travel a little bit. I even got to help with copywriting sometimes and help the sales team with some pitches. So I got really great exposure to all these different things just because at an agency, they're going to use whatever skills you have and whoever is willing to learn. So because of this, I actually really recommend a younger designer or someone who's just coming out of school, try to work for an agency. You get to learn a lot very, very quickly, try a lot of new things, and really figure out what you really like to do. Having all this exposure is really going to help you figure out where maybe your focus is or things you're really passionate about that you may not have been able to try before. That is definitely a huge pro for working at an agency. And the last pro I'm going to talk about is that you get to really build one-on-one relationships with clients. So kind of like I talked about earlier, you have to get to know them and their business. You have to understand their business needs, what they're coming to you for. You actually get to work a lot with your client, whether that's one-on-one or maybe sometimes through a project manager or some other person, but you really get a sense for a problem outside of your design agency doors, and you get to really see how your work impacts a business outside. I know not everyone probably thinks this is a good thing, but personally I really liked being able to meet new people, form those relationships, and at the end of the day, give them something that's going to help them and actually see the impact it has on them. It's really fulfilling. Okay, now I'm going to get into some of the cons of working for an agency. The first con is that there might be some projects that you don't really like to work on. So when you look at an agency website, you're going to see some flashy, awesome projects with some crazy clients and the stuff looks awesome and it's perfect and amazing and you're like, I would love to work on this kind of stuff. And you will get cool projects in an agency. However, there will be some in between that you probably won't like as much. A portfolio is showing your best and coolest work, right? So an agency website is really no different. They tend to show those high profile clients, the really cool interactive websites, the really beautiful work that comes out of it, but there's going to be projects in between that may have some restrictions or budget issues or client issues where that level of work may not always come out. In addition to that, there might be a project once in a while that you get that you actually couldn't care less about, or sometimes even worse, in that these projects are against your personal values and you really kind of don't have a choice but to work on them or to work with these particular clients. The next con I want to talk about, I'm sure plenty of you have been expecting, and that is some clients, God bless them, are very difficult to work with. In my experience at agencies, most of my clients were great. I liked working with them, they liked working with me, we had a good working relationship, I could relate to them, we could communicate well, but sometimes there's going to be clients that you really either don't get along with, or they don't respect you, or they think they're the designer and want to tell you how to do your job. That stuff does happen. In cases like that, it is your job to be professional, to educate them as best as possible, to position yourself as the expert. Side note, if they are coming to you for design, that means you're the designer. There also might be clients that don't give you what you need on time. They may be slow to respond. Their feedback might be really vague. And again, these are things that you have to learn how to approach. I've also had clients expect and ask for things that are above and beyond the project scope and budget. In that case, that is another thing you have to learn to halt and figure out before it turns into a big budget nightmare. With clients, of course, there's a lot of give and take. It's definitely a learned skill that comes with experience, but it's something that, especially in agencies, you're going to run into. Okay, the next con I kind of briefly mentioned there, and that is that agencies typically revolve around client contracts and client budgets. Understandably, they don't want to spend endless amounts of money to get what they're asking for. They need to know what they can expect for a certain amount of money. There may be some negotiation involved, but ultimately, as a designer, you are sort of beholden to what they're able to pay for and the things that everyone's agreed to. While there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, it's something that you have to watch out for, especially because in my experience, things always come up that you didn't expect or didn't know about in the contract phase that are going to sort of threaten that project scope. But also, as a designer at an agency, you're typically required to log your hours. The business needs to know how much time you're spending so they know what to bill the client. They know how much is too much. If we're getting too close to the end of the budget and we're only halfway through the project, that's going to be a problem. So being able to track your time helps the business, but it can be very tedious. And actually, for someone like me who is very much a rule follower, it was actually really stressful because I really wanted to not go over time, and you feel a little bit restricted in terms of what you can and can't do. And sometimes I was even so focused on making sure my time was okay that it was hard for me to focus on the actual work. So this kind of stuff comes up. You may feel like you have to work faster. You may feel like you have to not do the cool thing that you really want to do. And that is part of the gig of working at an agency. Again, a lot of give and take. Okay, the last con, and this is probably the biggest one for me and why I was looking to leave an agency when I did, is that it can be really, really stressful. So especially if you're someone like me where deadlines mean everything to you and you are very strict with your time because you don't want to go over and you want to do everything right and not make anyone mad, it can feel like a lot of pressure, and I found it actually really stressful at times. And on the flip side, sometimes business is slow and your projects are wrapping up and sales hasn't brought in any new business in a while and you have to find ways to keep yourself busy. It can also be stressful. So actually for me, this was the big reason why I decided to not work in an agency, just to see what other design jobs were like. And I will report back that so far, agencies win for levels of stress. All that said, Even though things were stressful, things can be hard to deal with, for the most part, I really, really loved working in agencies. I loved that I got to learn a lot of new things. I got to try out different things. I got a lot of exposure to different types of work, got to meet a lot of great people, and I think I learned a lot that really gave me a good foundation for the rest of my career. And especially if one day you want to be a freelancer, for instance, I think being in an agency, seeing how businesses run, can really help you and teach you a lot before you decide to go freelance. That was a little side note, but a good one. Anyway, I hope this was a really good overview for you as far as what you could expect if you're looking to work in an agency. These are things that I did not know at all, so there you go. If you're a student or you're looking into design and you think an agency might be right for you, or maybe you have some other questions about it, definitely leave a comment down below. And for those of you who have worked in agencies, I'm actually really curious if your experience matches mine, because it seems like these are some really common things, but maybe you had an agency that was nothing like this, and that would be interesting to know. So leave a comment down below. Love to hear from you. If you liked this video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd give me a thumbs up. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed to my channel, hit that red subscribe button to be alerted of all my new videos when they come out. That is all I have for you today, gals and guys. Hope you liked this one. Coming up next, I'm gonna do some very similar videos about working in a startup or working in-house. Hope you'll find that really interesting. I find it fascinating how you can be a designer and have such different experiences depending on what type of place you're working and what you're doing. So those are coming soon. Definitely keep a lookout for those. And yeah, that's all I have. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later.